Year 5 and welcome to Tuesday's English session, where we are going to be carrying on with our main text called The Explorer by the author Catherine Rundell. Now if you think back to the end of yesterday's session, I asked you to make a prediction about what you think might happen next in the story. When we left when we finished chapter 1 called Flight, the airplane that Fred and the pilot and other children were flying in over the Amazon River and the Amazon rainforest suffered a tragedy in that the pilot became very, very ill. He cut the engine and the plane starts to dip down, and the children on board are all shrieking. They're crying, they are very, very distressed about what is going to happen. So, your predictions, what you think might happen next? Well, does the pilot survive, you might have wondered. Do the children survive? What's going to happen to the plane? Where will they land? Will they meet anyone there? All of those questions you might have answered in your prediction. So, in today's lesson, our objectives are to read and summarise the events in chapter 2, which is called The Green Dark, and to justify opinions using evidence from the text. Right, now, you need to make sure that you have your copy of The Explorer in front of you. If you don't have it in front of you now, pause the video and go and fetch it. And we are going to start today's session by looking at pages 6 and 7 of the book. The fire called back in response. A tree behind him sent up a fountain of flames. There was a rumble of thunder. Nothing else replied. A burning branch cracked, spat red, and fell in a cascade of sparks. The rain came suddenly and hard. It turned the soot and sweat on his hands to something like tar, but it began to quench the fire. So in your first task, I'd like you, please, to think about what the word cascade means. Cascade. Here in your vocabulary box, as well as being highlighted in the extract. I've highlighted it so that you can see where it comes in the sentence. I'd also like you to define the word quench. Again, you're going to have to use the context of the sentence to help you work out what the word means. So in other words, look at the sentence in which the word appears. Pause the video now and answer those questions in your workbook. Well done, Year 5, for giving that a good go. So cascade actually is like a small waterfall. But of course, what it's describing here isn't water. It's actually describing how the sparks are falling from a burning branch. So it's showing just how many sparks are falling. That they're gushing down, they're overflowing. And then the word quench. What do we think quench means? Well, let's look to see where it appears in the sentence. So, the rain came suddenly and hard. It turned the soot and sweat on his hands to something like tar, but it began to quench the fire. So it's describing here how the rain is putting out the fire. It's starting to stop, to quench the fire. Which is, it's a very powerful sound. Rather than saying it's more effective, more creative sounding than just saying to put out. To quench means to put it means to stop the fire. Okay, now in this next activity, I'd like you to have a think back about what personification means. Now this is something we have done in class before. We've talked about personification. We have studied it. Pause the video now and write down your ideas. If you're a little bit stuck, look at the word within the word. Person. Person. What could personification mean if the word person is there? Pause the video now. Good. Well done if you remembered that personification is when you give an animal animal or object qualities or abilities that only humans can have. Right? Only a human can have. So that's why I said as the clue, personification, look at the word person. Gives you a good... So for example, we could say that the wind howled in the night. The wind can't actually howl. Howl is something that humans can do. But it's to try and give the impression that the wind is whipping by really quite loudly. You could also say that the trees danced in the breeze. Trees can't actually dance, but what it's doing is giving the impression of how the trees are moving in the breeze. They're dancing. Those are examples of personification. Let's look back at our extract on page 6 and 7 of the Explorer. The question is, can you spot the examples of personification in this extract? And what effect do they have on the reader? Pause the video now and see if you can identify or retrieve the examples of personification in this extract. Okay, so the examples that I've highlighted here in red are examples of personification. So we've got one, the fire called back. Fire can't actually call, but it's giving the idea that it's speaking to Fred. There was a rumble of thunder, nothing else replied. So it's suggesting that, that the forest, the surroundings, the fire have the ability to speak, when they don't actually. A burning branch cracked, spat red. A burning branch can't actually spit red, but it's to show you how the fire and the sparks are pouring from it, giving it those human qualities. So altogether, the examples of personification show that the fire and the forest are alive. So as we continue the chapter, Fred discovers that he is not alone. He is not the only one to have survived the crash. We meet the other survivors, the children who were on board the plane. We meet Lila and her brother Max, and we meet a girl called Con. Now I would like you to look very carefully at pages 10 and 11 of your book. You're going to read those pages, and you will give details about each of the survivors. You draw a picture of each one using information. Pause the video now and make sure that you write the names clearly and details about each one. Well done, Year 5. Okay, so hopefully you've managed to get a few details about the children. At this stage of the story, we don't know much about them, so it's okay if you haven't written very much. Let's start with Fred. Well, Fred, as we know, is a boy, and that he has been travelling on the plane. He is a survivor who talks to the other children. There is Lila, who is a girl, and we meet her younger brother, Max. Both of them are shaken up by what has happened, slightly injured as well, having been in the crash. But Max, being the younger one, who is much younger, is very upset that we learn that he is crying. And then we meet Con. Now Con, right from the word go, is quite unfriendly to the others. She's clearly very fed up, that she replies in a very kind of huffy and brusque way, and actually interrupts Fred on a couple of occasions on that first page. We learn that her hair looks grey with the soot, and it looks brown with blood. So these are her injuries from the crash. We also learn that she's got a scratch on her shoulder that looks deep. She also says that her name is Constantia, but if you call me that, I'll kill you. So clearly she does not want to be referred to by her full first name, just Con. So using the extract or the reading from pages 10 and 11, we actually seem to have more information about Con, the character of Con, at this stage of the story. I'm reading now from the book, which is on page 10, so you can follow this in your own copies of the book. The blonde girl stepped out into the lashing rain. She stared from Fred to the other two, unsmiling. "I'm Con," she said. "It's short for Constantia, but if you call me that, I'll kill you. We're lost in the Amazon jungle, and statistically speaking, it's very likely that we're going to die. So no, I think it would be safe to say that none of us are all right. Not at all, not even slightly." What are your first impressions of Con? Do you like her? Explain your answer using evidence from the text. So here, your activity is to write down what you think about Con, your first impressions. An impression is just your first thoughts about this character. But rather than just giving a short answer, I want you to try and explain your idea by referring to the book. Now, you can use some of the extracts that I've included on the screen. You can look elsewhere in the chapter as well. Pause the video now and write down your first impressions of Con. I'm sure you've written some excellent ideas about this character of Con. She's certainly a very interesting character. And these first impressions of her are important. You might have included that actually at first she's pretty unfriendly. The fact that she sort of threatens the children, unsmiling, it says, she'll kill them if they call her by her first name properly. That she's also quite negative about the situation they're in. We're lost in the Amazon jungle, and statistically speaking, it's very likely we're going to die. So immediately her thoughts are negative. That could be a reason why you don't like her. However, on the other hand, you might argue that that's quite a normal reaction to the situation the children are in, and also having just survived a very major, very serious plane crash, actually she could be quite right in thinking that, well, the situation doesn't look good. The fact that her hair is brown with blood and that she's got this deep looking scratch on her shoulder might make you feel a little bit sorry for her, that she has just been through an ordeal, something really scary. Well done for coming up with some of your own ideas, and keep them in mind for when as we go on with the story. Okay then, the last activity for today's lesson. Your task now is to describe the setting in 5 words and have your ideas ready for tomorrow's lesson. So 5 words to describe the setting. Off you go. Okay, now you've had a chance to write down your words. Keep them ready for tomorrow's lesson. And if you can read on in the book, you can read chapter 3, which is called The Den, that would be fantastic. If you can just read a little bit more of the text, that would be great. But if you can't, that's also fine, as I'll be summing up the story as we go along. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!